Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. In one of my previous videos, I think it might have been the book haul video, please check that out if you haven't already, I mentioned that I had purchased this book of, this Edith Holden book of The Country Diary of an Edwardian Lady. And I also mentioned that I had bought this Simply Cards and Paper Craft magazine, which is issue 193. It's a 2019 issue, and it had with it a bunch of stamps, The Country Diary of an Edwardian Lady, plus it had a whole heap of papers in there to play with. And so what I thought I'd do today was I thought I would sit down and have a play with the stamps and the papers and see if I could come up with something cute. And I actually have. I've come up with a little booklet. You guys know that I have this thing for booklets. I love making little booklets that you could just maybe tuck into your junk journals like this, or you could just send them out as ephemera holders to friends, or however you want to do, however you want to play with your booklets. So this is the booklet that I created. I love how it turned out. And this is the inside. So it has a little spot here for a card, and it has a little spot here for a tag. Also a little tuck spot here if you wanted to use that instead. It was actually quite easy to use, and I loved using the stamps and the papers from that issue. Really cool. So I did that one. I also did a second one here. Let me show you. So that one looks like this. And on the inside, instead of using like a little journaling card, I used a paper bag and decorated that. Here on this side I made this little corner tuck as well, and then did another tag, this time using the bee yellow theme, and like a little, this is a little paper clip here. It has a little like fold out which you can do some journaling in, and then you can just put that paper clip there and tuck it in here. So if you're interested in making this little booklet, I ended up using 2 envelopes, which is how it's constructed. Really easy. Obviously, if you don't have these stamps, that is not a problem. Go ahead and grab any sort of stamps that you have, any nature-themed stamps, or you know, flora, fauna, insect, butterfly, whatever you like. And yeah, come along and craft with me and make this little booklet. So at the beginning of this play session, I sort of didn't really know where I was going. So what I thought I would do was just pull out my stamps and stamp out all these images using tea-dyed, or it may be coffee-dyed paper. I have 2 colors of ink here. I've got the black archival, plus I have the Versamark in vintage sepia. Just testing out my stamps here. I had not used them before, so obviously you've got to prime them. You saw that first print there, didn't print all the way through. So what I did was I just flipped the page over and did it again. I usually find that I like it better when I put the stamp down and I ink the stamp with the ink pad in my hand and then stamp that way, instead of putting the stamp on the ink pad, then inking onto the paper, if you know what I mean. So yeah, so stamp goes down, ink goes on top, and then I stamp. And then what I ended up doing was switching those 2 papers around, because the paper on the right hand side was darker than the paper on the left, so I used the black ink on the right hand side and the brown ink on the lighter page on the left hand side. So yeah, so here I am just going ahead and stamping everything out. And I often do this sometimes when I just kind of don't have a project in mind. I just end up stamping a whole lot of stuff and having some images ready for journaling or making cards or whatever it is that I'm doing. So this is getting a feel for the theme, getting a feel for what I have, and then what I'm doing is I'm just very easily here tearing all the images apart. As you can see, my sister is on my phone. She and I are having a conversation while I'm cutting out my images. So, you know, multitasking is always good. She was driving on her way to work, and I was sitting at my desk crafting. So which is often how it is on the weekends. So at this stage, I have a whole pile of really beautiful images that are stamped and cut and ready to be used. And so what I end up doing here is I thought, well, I have so many envelopes sitting on my desk, so I thought, why not create a little envelope book which I can then tuck into a junk journal. And that's how I kind of started this whole project. I thought, well, I know what I'm doing. I'm not stamping and coloring. What I'm doing is I am making a booklet, which is my go-to for anything. I usually love making booklets. They're easy to make. They're a quick project. They're a good start and finish project where you don't have lots of things waiting on your desk forever. So yes, this is my favorite new book at the moment. I'm so pleased that I have one. Apparently they're hard to come by here in Australia, so I bought one of these off eBay. It came from the UK. I could easily just tear out these pages, but I actually don't want to. I love these pages and I want this book to be in my library forever and ever. So I'm kind of just taking inspiration and trying to find out, trying to get an idea of what it is I'm doing here. So I pull out the pages that come with this magazine, and it's a whole lot of Edith Holden style pages plus some pictures and some die cuts and some pattern paper. So I end up matching the die cut images on the paper with the pattern paper and making sort of a booklet with a theme that flows, if you get my drift. You'll see what I'm doing in a moment here. So there's 2 lots of everything. So here is one lot of the die cuts. Here is another one. And then I went ahead and I cut out all the other ones. So I'm just putting them here where they correspond. So now I'm down to one set of each of the papers and the die cut. And so they're going to go into a hoarding stash. And because once I've used them, I won't have any more. So I'm just organizing now what I've fussy cut out and just having a play with how much stuff I have and what I've got to play with, because I'm going to end up making 3 panels on the booklets. You'll see. So one panel gets stuck down to your junk journal. The other 3 get decorated really nicely. Have a look at this first pattern paper. This is a butterfly theme, so what I'm thinking is pulling out all the butterfly and kind of like flower colors that go along with that pattern paper. I'm then thinking perhaps there's a bee theme there, so I could pull out a whole lot of bees and make another booklet in that kind of theme. So there's lots of ideas. And I decided to go with this pretty, and I'm really bad at flowers, but is this some kind of lilac, I think? I really apologize. Not so good with British country garden plants. Pretty average with Australian or whatever's growing in my garden, but don't know much about English country gardens. And then again, here is another idea, the bird pattern paper, and pull out a whole lot of the birds. So just by coordinating the stamped images plus the pattern paper plus the die cuts that came with the magazine, you're able to create several themes. Okay, so let's get our booklet going. I'm just showing you here that if you don't have the same pattern papers that I have, I found some vintage wrapping paper which pretty much looks like they could be Edith Holden images. And so I thought that they were really pretty. I've cut down panels to approximately the size of 4 1/4 by almost 6 inches high. And I'm just kind of having a play and just seeing what goes well together. I've got these book pages from an old gardening book, and I decide to use one on the left hand side and decide to use the bird image, the bird pattern paper on the right hand side. I'm using vintage sepia here just to ink up the edges of my papers. I'm then going all around the envelope booklet with my vintage sepia, making sure that that crack between the left and the right hand side also gets inked up so it doesn't look so stark. I'm covering over the envelope pouches. I'm not putting anything in there. You could choose to do so if you want. I'm now moving on to the front of the cover. So one side of the cover is going to get stuck down to my junk journal, and the front cover is going to be decorated along with the insides. I started inking the edges of the bird photo, but then I decided to use the flower one instead. But I mean, that doesn't matter because I will end up making a second booklet, and I use the bird in the second booklet. So I'm just going to attach that down. So that is the base pages put down on my booklet. I'm now going to show you how I make these little corner tucks. This is basically just an origami method. As I was growing up, I was fascinated because my mom always made origami boats, origami cranes, origami anything. So this is just one thing I learned from my mom from a very young age. So I'm using just normal book page here. And all you need for any origami is a square piece of paper. So I'm just folding one side over so that you have a square piece of paper, and then you just fold down the excess and then you cut that off. So this now goes from corner to corner and like a triangle. Then you need to bring up one corner up to the very top peak. And make sure all your corners are pretty perfectly lined up. Bring the second corner up to the peak, and now you have what looks like a diamond shape. So it looks like it has, the two legs are both facing up. So open up your triangle, bring down one of the triangle pieces to the very crease line, then tuck it in. Then pull up the corner piece and tuck it in behind the little tuck spot there. You're going to do the same thing with that left hand side. Bring it up as if you were going to put it up to the peak, but then tuck it into the bottom there, just like I show you. And just like that, you've got a tuck that requires no glue. You can choose to leave it like this as a square form, or you can choose to tuck that top peak in as well, so that it is a triangle. I do both ways. So let me show you one more time. So go ahead and bring one corner up to the other one so you have a triangle. Bring the right arm up to the peak, and then bring the left arm up to the peak. So now you have like this diamond shape. Bring down the legs. Go ahead and fold the top layer down to the crease line. Make sure it creases really well. Then reverse it and tuck it in. Then bring up that right arm up to the top again, but this time tuck it in to the back. And you can choose to distress at this stage. Then that left arm, make sure it's nice and straight. Bring it up for the edge to touch the peak at the very top. Make sure that everything is lined up nicely, crease it well, and then all you have to do is just tuck it in. And then you can choose to ink the inside here as well, and then ink all the way around. You can choose to open this joint as well and ink it. That looks really good. And then I'm going to ink up along the top here. And there you have it. The two corners are done. So I decided to put one on the upper left hand side and one at the bottom right hand side. And I'm just going to use my art glitter glue and I'm going to adhere that down. And these now act as tuck spots where you can put a journaling card up here on the left hand side or on the right hand side. What I've got here is some American Crafts cardstock, and I've got an embossing folder here, which is a Sizzix 2-pack texture fade. One is a collage and the other was a notebook set, and I love this embossing folder. I usually use it to just make some inserts for my junk journals to make it look like it's a notepad, and I love inking it as well as distressing all the raised edges so it looks like a really old ratty notebook. So this is what I ended up using as a tuck in one of these booklets. So for this first piece of ephemera, I'm going to use this bird cutout, and I'm going to layer it with burlap just in the bottom right hand corner there. I'm going to ink the edges up and place it down just like that. Just quite a simple little something just in the corner there, and it allows room for journaling. I thought it looked a little bit bare, so I decided to put a little butterfly in the back there, and those three elements work really well there. And on the right hand side, what I decided to do was cut that piece of paper down to a tag size. And so all I did was measured it out to be 3 inches wide by 5.5 inches high. I'm going to use some of the bird pattern paper here, and I'm just going to put a little bit on the right hand side there. And I'll just show you really quickly here. I saved you a little bit of time, but I had earlier gone ahead and colored in some of the pieces that I stamped earlier in the video, and I did that using my watercolor palette, my Prima watercolor palette, and I kind of just wanted to save you that. Didn't really need to watch me watercoloring. But yeah, so this is what I'm doing here now. I'm bringing in those flowers and I'm just tucking them in a pleasing formation on that tag. So I'm just inking up the edges so that they go a little bit with the inked up edges of the paper and the tag, and then I'm going to start adhering everything down. Really love how these elements all go together, and I think the tag looks really beautiful, very Edith Holden style, and I'm just really excited that I have this stamp set now and that I'll be able to create a whole lot of different layouts for my junk journals. And I have a cutout here of a butterfly and a cutout and a stamped image which I had previously also colored in. This is one of those die cuts that I actually cut out from the papers that came with the magazine. I decided to bend it in half, and I ended up using it like a kind of like a fold out to the right hand side so that you can do a little bit of journaling on the inside there, but it doesn't interfere too much with the look of the tag. I ended up putting some glue on just the right hand side of the butterfly, and then leaving the left hand side to open and close. And I just love how that tag looks all together with that burlap on the left hand side. Just totally love the feel of this Edith Holden little booklet. Next, I've just pulled out the tag, and the center of that right hand side page where the corner tuck is just looks a little bit stark there, so I thought I would just add a little flower. And now it's time just to add a little bit of something along the top side there, and what I decided to do was just use a little bit of book page, which I'm going to add some ink on the sides too. I'm going to tear the edges so it looks a little bit you know, like shabby chic, like homemade. Ink the edges, and then I'm going to adhere one side down and adhere, put like a tiny strip of glue towards the inner tuck so that it's closed but not glued all the way down. So you should still be able to tuck something in there without it opening all the way up and then your thing falling out. If you see what I mean, you can see what I'm doing now. So I just love how you can, you know, you can make things out of nothing, like book pages. Pretty cool. So you can put the tag in at the bottom, or you can tuck it at the top, or you can do both, which is what I've done here. So now I've just got these beautiful tassels. I just want to add a hole to my tag. I'm going to grab some pink twine, and I know I went for the yellow tassel there. I'm going to swap it out for the pink tassel. I was trying to match the butterfly, but I thought it would be better to match to the color of the pink twine. And I add that to the tag, and the tag is now complete, and I'm so in love with the tag. It's really cool. I'm now reaching for my black gel pen, and I just wanted to add a little bit of black spots to the middle of that pretty flower just to make it pop even more. And just like that, my tag is done. I'm able to tuck it in and then tuck it under. And yeah, the inside is done. Now we need to focus on the front cover of my booklet, and I decided to go with this pretty picture of the bird in a nest, and just grabbing some lace now. This is a huge bit, so I'm only going to take a third of it, and I've decided to do the lace on the left hand side there. And all I'm going to do now is just start layering a few things. I'm going to add some book page, I'm going to add some music paper, I'm going to add a butterfly, I'm going to add a sentiment to go all underneath my focal point. I'm going to remember to ink the edges up. And lastly, I'm going to add 2 bits of pearls, which kind of just are the cherry on top, a little bit of extra bling, which I normally don't do, but it seemed appropriate here only because it was sitting on my desk and I never used them, so I thought I'd better. There you go, that's the pearls put in afterwards. So that is my booklet done, and here is a picture of the inside. Let me just show you really quickly. This is the second booklet that I made with the bird paper on the front, and then the inside I decided to go for the tucks that were just triangle, not the square this time, and I ended up using the bee pattern paper, and so I made the tag into a sort of bee theme tag, and I ended up using that yellow tassel after all. So those are my booklets using the Country Diary of an Edwardian Lady stamp set, which I got from the Simply Cards and Papercraft magazine. Thank you so much for joining me, everybody. I hope you get a chance to make some of these booklets for yourself. I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you in my next video.